soaring eloquence and rapid-fire irreverent asides, some delivered in languages that have not been heard among the living for centuries. It will be hard for anyone to replicate that particular pattern. But he also has, I think, a very unusual talent to bend modern English in unexpected directions that defy social convention and confound and delight the listener. My favorite is, only Andrew Orchard would have invented the idea that in saluting the graduates of Trinity or any other group, he would say to the graduating class, "Now would be a really great time to ask your parents for money." Only Andy could pull that. So it's been a magical 6 years. To those of us from the outside, though not really so very far away, we saw Andy championing Trinity's famously high academic standards and raising aspirations even higher, but at the same time helping everyone to loosen up a little bit. That's not an easy balance to strike as a leader, and Andy made it seem effortless. I will also remember very fondly Andy's wonderful sense of humor and the generosity of spirit that animated his public addresses and his private communications. Our friend has an uncanny ability to highlight the incongruous in a way that is ironic and empathic all at once. Now, I might suggest that those attributes flow in part from his scholarship. He's certainly a humanist in every sense of the word, a man whose scholarship and sensibilities are informed by a deep understanding of the commonality of our experiences on this planet across centuries and across cultures. But of course, humanists have no monopoly on humanism. Trinity's various leaders, past and present, demonstrated this fact, hailing from a wide variety of disciplines in arts and science, while sharing the ability to understand and connect that Andy exemplifies. Each of them has brought great gifts to the service of Trinity, clearly one of the great crown jewels of the Academic Federation, and they have brought those gifts to the University of Toronto as well. Now, Andy's gifts are very obvious, and with his departure, we feel a loss. And Andy, we're very proud that you're off to Oxford. We're also saddened that you're leaving. I have given you private grief. I won't give you public grief about it, but we are slowly recovering. Woody Allen said the heart is a resilient little muscle. And so we are steeling ourselves for the departure and looking forward to the next phase and to who will come after Andy. And here I would say only that Trinity has shown to this for many decades, it's never at a loss for long. And as I said before, I have full confidence you will attract a wonderful successor for Andy Orchard, just as you have continued to nurture outstanding students and great leaders over the decades. In that respect, I can assure you that Andy Orchard will be remembered at the University of Toronto as a great leader. He's made this wonderful college even more wonderful in his time in the Provost office. For that, we are all most grateful. Thank you, Andy, and best of luck at Oxford.
Thank you, President Naylor. Our next speaker is from the Center of Medieval Studies. Professor Lauren Armstrong is a close colleague of Andy's, and incidentally, as well, a man who has been handed Trinity's oratorical torch. He definitely holds that well and high, as we found last week as Trinity's public orator at our matriculation ceremony, with great masterful execution of the students. So, Lauren.
Some of you must think I actually want to see Andy go, because this is my third speech of farewell. But believe me, I don't want to see him go. Today I speak not in the name of the college or the fellows and staff, but on behalf of the Center for Medieval Studies, which Andy has adorned for the past 13 years as a teacher, scholar, and administrator. I don't need to remind you of Andy's talent as a teacher and supervisor. The numbers speak for themselves. He has supervised, at last count, over 40 PhD dissertations. the bulk of them here at the University of Toronto. Nor do I need to remind you of his skill as an administrator. Though he was director of CMS for only 3 years, during that time we attracted a record number of talented graduate students, many of them to work under Andy himself. We hosted a score of international conferences, including the biggest medieval Academy of American meeting in history. And thanks to Andy's negotiating skills, we acquired fabulous new premises in the Lillian Massey building. But what I want especially to emphasize here is Andy's critical contributions to the discipline of medieval studies, particularly as we practice it here in Toronto. In the English-speaking world, Anglo-Saxon, which is Andy's flagship subject, has traditionally been studied, understandably enough, as the earliest form of English. And on the continent, it's been viewed comparatively as one of a number of early North German dialects. What Andy's work establishes beyond question is that it's no longer possible to speak of Anglo-Saxon literature and Anglo-Saxon culture as exclusively vernacular phenomena. Anglo-Saxon literature embraced both Latin and vernacular genres, between which most writers moved with ease. And Anglo-Saxon culture bears the imprint of the multilingual and multicultural matrix of early medieval Britain. It's precisely Andy's scholarly multilingualism, his ability to move with complete mastery between traditions pagan and Christian, classical and Germanic, oral and literary, in a dozen, mainly dead, languages, that has made him such a key player at CMS, where both the Dictionary of Old English and the training of aspirant medievalists in Latin have long been priorities. We're very sorry to see you go, dude. You'll be sorely missed, but you won't be forgotten. In the great hall of CMS, we'll long echo the words of Beowulf, in my case, in the translation of the late Seamus Heaney. So, the spear dames in days gone by, and the kings who ruled them, had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. From the Department of English, where both Andy and Claire have found one of their many appreciative homes at the University of Toronto, Professor Paul Stevens, acting chair of the department and also good friend of Andy and Claire.
6 months ago, when the news broke, the real chair of English, Alan Mule, came into my office and insisted we have to do all we can to keep Orchard. I responded as quick as a flash, yes, let's do all we can to keep Claire. But shouldn't we really do something for Andy as well? And we did. We offered him all kinds of blandishments, the things that most English professors yearn for. His picture on a boundless banner, an intimate evening with Margaret Wenty, even a rare video of Mayor Ford relaxing with his friends. But all to no avail. The truth, needless to say, is somewhat different. The Department of English has been blessed with a series of outstanding chairs, most recently Brian Corman and Alan Mule. Brian recruited Andy and Alan worked tirelessly to retain him. They did this because of his extraordinary qualities. If you've ever listened carefully to Andy give a speech, as President Naylor was just suggesting now, you get some idea of what those qualities might be. You know that his talks always focus on particular words. Not only does he love and revere words, but on his tongue, they come alive. They start playing and doing all kinds of strange, perplexing, and sometimes very rude things. So much so that the conventional, utterly precarious nature of language suddenly and disturbingly becomes apparent. The particular words that come to mind when one thinks of Andy, the words that sit up and beg for attention, are genius and ludic. There are others that come to mind, certainly, but genius and ludic steal the show. Andy's modes of articulation are characteristically puck-like, genial and ludicrous. Not ludicrous in the sense of foolish, but in the sense of words pushing their own preposterous possibilities to the extreme. While their characteristic effect is often hilarious, that effect is also revelatory. What the eye of man hath not heard, nor the ear of man seen, at this bottom might put it. Even while we're laughing, they enable us to see things we've never imagined, and they do it so often and with such speed and acuity that you end up feeling, so that's what genius actually sounds like. The difference between Andy's intellectual life and his way of being in the world is almost non-existent. It's seamless. He was a man born to write the great book on the Anglo-Saxon riddling tradition and to become the Rawlinson and Bosworth Chair of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford. In these accomplishments, he has emerged as the most brilliant Old English scholar of his generation. So what our 6-foot Guinness-drinking puck has brought before English is that not only academic distinction and intellectual rigor, but vitality and warmth. He has rocked students, stimulated colleagues, and inspired affection everywhere. But his last best gift to the department, as Milton would say, has been Claire, who has worked with Alan as the chair's executive assistant for the last 5 years. The particular word that escapes Andy's anarchic, irreverent troupe of locutions and presents itself for our attention with Claire is grace. Not grace as a form of superficial politeness, but grace as the surplus of a kindness that enables others to fulfill themselves and become better people. I see it every day in the office. My point is that the effect of Andy and Claire and Ellen and Oscar has been palpable in helping to transform an academic unit into a community. As everyone here knows, you feel better when you're around them. As he withdraws to Mullen's Ale House immediately after this event, Andy will say, "Oh, this is just typical Stephen's Welsh bullshit." Actually, it's not. It's not typical at all. The Welsh are a peculiarly innocent people. The worst that you can say in Welsh, the most obscene retort, is "Cael geg diawl," which somewhat pathetically means "shut your mouth, devil." Only a nation as naive as the Welsh could call themselves Welsh, because the word is actually English. It's what Andy's lot, the Anglo-Saxons, originally called us. It's the Old English word for wheelish, the word for foreigner, outsider, or most famously in Andy's celebrated translation of Abbot Aelfric's letter to King Alfred the Unready, a short, fat person of absolutely no consequence. And so, from the wrong side of Offa's Dyke, let me send greetings and say this to Andy in Welsh. Diolch yn fawr, Asir. Thanks for everything, Andy.
Thank you, Paul. To represent Trinity College, Professor Michael Ratcliffe, who is the current Dean of Arts and Vice Provost, soon to be interim Provost and Vice Chancellor. I sense a bit of a progression here. Chancellor Graham, you better take note.
Thank you very much, Bruce. So, I've actually known Andy far less time than most of you here, and so I'm actually truly honoured to have been invited to speak on behalf of Trinity this afternoon. Because I'm actually one of the newest of the leadership group, and there's some words that I want to say about that leadership group and Andy's influence on them that I want to focus on. So I didn't really know Andy before. before I got involved with Trinity at a more profound level. I've been a fellow at Trinity, and so of course I've seen Andy at the Senate. And when people started mentioning my name in the context of the next Dean of Arts, I thought I should maybe kind of meet this guy and see what it would be like to work with Andy. And so we organised a meeting, and I sat and chatted with Andy for about an hour. And despite that, what actually came out of that conversation was an understanding that Andy cares so hugely about Trinity College, and cares in a way that really actually obviously pleased me, but actually surprised me as to how profound that caring was. And that caring carries through into all aspects of his work at Trinity. He's got a firm understanding of the history of Trinity, of the traditions, but very, very importantly, he also had a very clear understanding of the fact that Trinity owes itself the opportunity to evolve, to progress, to move forward, and he was actually quite interested in the possibility of doing something really weird, like appointing a scientist as Dean of Arts. And that says a lot about Andy. He's not afraid to take chances. Take chances from the perspective of really believing that it could be change-making and in a very, very positive way. And so as a member of the Provost Advisory Committee, most of whom have in fact been recruited by Andy into their respective positions, I've come to get a sense of the qualities that Andy has not only as a leader, but in his abilities to bring out leadership in others, and to support others, and to get a really extraordinary group of individuals working together on behalf of the college, for the college, and thinking always about the college. So, it's been a blast. It's been a huge amount of fun to work with Andy. I think one of the other reasons why I was invited to give this talk is that really not knowing Andy nearly as well as many of you in the room, I actually don't have the same kinds of stories that might embarrass Andy. What I will say though, Andy, is you have left a huge impression here at Trinity. We are hugely proud of where you will be going. We will miss you immensely. We will toast you on the wall on frequent occasions, we hope. We will welcome you back with open arms when you visit. There will always be a Guinness waiting for you at Trinity. Actually, it will always be the same one because none of us like this. But Andy, congratulations. We wish you all the best, and we will thoroughly miss you.
Thank you, Mike. If I may, I'd like to say a few words about the artist of the portrait who is with us today. Paul Wise has made your portraits in the finest collections, including the National Portrait Gallery of the Smithsonian Institute, the Steinway Hall Historical Portrait Collection, the House of Commons of Canada, and now, of course, Strawn Hall of Trinity College. Paul has firmly established himself as one of North America's finest portrait painters. His list of notable clients, catch this, includes pop legend Billy Joel, Kennedy Center award-winning conductor and pianist Leon Fleischer, the 34th Speaker of the House of Commons of Canada, Peter Milliken, famed Nolens crooner Harry Connick Jr., the Archbishop of Canada and Ottawa Seraphim, and star of Mamma Mia and legendary Broadway leading lady Louise Pitre, among others. So, Andy, you're in amazing company, and we'll look to see where Paul has brought out the musical side of him. Mr. Wise is a prize winner in many competitions, and his work has appeared in many major publications. So, Paul Wise is with us here. Now, you don't applaud after we unveil. Okay, may I please call on Chancellor Bill Graham and Chair of the Board, Evan Howard, first to unveil the portrait before we have the toast, if we may, yes.
I want Andy here, so if he faints, we can walk. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege as Chancellor to propose a toast to Andy. I'm going to do an unusual thing here. I'm going to ask my fellow Chancellor, Mr. Wilson, come on up here to join me in making this toast. Because I want to pick up something that David Naylor said about Trinity and separatism at the university. And remind Professor Naylor that under Andy's watch, we managed to slide into the top spot over there at Trinity Man. So, we're not unlike Quebec. We may be secessionists, but we like to get to the top of the central place. Andy, you've been an extraordinary provost. The students will say so. Your faculty friends will say so. Future generations will say so, the alumni says so. We've had an extraordinary experience with you as our provost, and as has been pointed out, an extraordinary experience to have your wonderful wife, Claire, join us in the Provost Lodge to make this a family of Trinity, the two of you have managed to do. And so, Andy, it's my privilege on behalf of the college to ask everybody here to raise a glass to Andy. We wish him well, and we wish him Godspeed, and we wish him to come back and join us with his wonderful humor and his great sense of how wonderful this college is. Andy, all the best to you.
All the best.
And we have a gift for you. If you have to come over here for a moment. Maybe Claire, too.
Strong?
This has to be, Claire, this will have to be hung somewhere, so maybe. I've always discovered that wives really decide where things go. I don't think you want to put this in bed anyway. I think it's a compromise. Congratulations, Andy. It's called the Guinness kiss.
It's too many of you. I'm speechless. Oh, shut
Oh, another one of you. That's the head. Yes. Very nice. Yeah. More for clarity.
Some it's not just because I just left the speech in the pub. Here in the presence of presidents past, present, future, we've got a couple of chancellors who are just laying on the side. We've got deans, we've got provosts, we've got familiar family and friends. But mainly we've got friends. You guys are friends. And I really want to thank you for being here. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to me and mine. The people who can't make it have been very sweet in sending messages. So the current provost of U of T, she's on a porter flight. She sent me a very sweet message. And, it means a lot to me. I'm a bit overwhelmed. Because I also seem to be not only in the presence of you guys and all these presidents, but apparently I'm in the presence of myself. Or at least, if I can say this to Paul, myself wised up. Oh, it get worse. When the Art Committee, or rather Sylvia, who is the Art Committee's representative on Earth, told me that Paul Wise was going to paint me, of course I did what every self-respecting researcher would do. I Googled him. And I saw he'd done amazing portraits of, for example, Mark Fisher, and as we've already heard, of Billy Joel. And I thought, like there were separate portraits, I just want to make that clear. It would be a fantastic tabloid story if it were true. And now it might be. I thought, hey, here's a man, he's good with beards. Here's a man who can handle artistic types. And then I looked further through his portfolio, and Paul is absolutely amazing painter. I asked him, who are you painting now? He said, the Prime Minister. He said, not the current one. And I said, stick around. But he's painted some wonderful people, but he's very, very, very good, and I just put this out to those of you who want to have portraits. He's very good at fat men with beards who are slightly bald. So, if anyone here wants to buy a portrait for Bob Bothwell, I'm in. I think, thanks to Paul for all sorts of reasons. Thanks to Paul for making me look a lot thinner. Thanks to Paul for, my hands look like sausages, and that's just in real life. Just thanks to Paul for making me look so much better than I actually am. In my script it says that I want to thank David and Paul, and Lauren and Mike for making me sound much better than I actually am. I'm going to take Paul out of that. But that's just because I've met him. Welsh people should never make speeches. Because mainly they make them much better than me, and so I hate them. As I move into that twilight category of those forgotten but not gone, I have to say I've been really, really touched. I think I speak for Claire too. I've been greatly moved by what I've heard and read so many times over the past few weeks from so many people, many of whom are here today. I like the line, are you still here? I like the line, have you been fired by Oxford already? most common one of all is, can I have your spot at Mullins? The answers I've given in highly expurgated English are respectively, but not respectfully necessarily. Not yet. Absolutely not. The last answer is heavily expurgated. I've given Ken, who I think is here tonight, and all the other guys from Wales. I've given Ken a list of all the people I do not want sitting in my seat at the moment. And Brenda's going to help me with this. I think you're all on it. But it's possible I missed a few. There's also that annoying bloke with glasses who definitely shouldn't be. In any case, it's a very humbling thing to see here so many people from so many parts of our lives, and it's been our lives that you've been at Trinity at Toronto. I think as we all know, these are all very quirky places. I want to sit down with David Naylor in Oxford sometime with a pint in our hands and discuss exactly how quirky all these places are. But they're quirky. I have a very small request to you, which is, I'll just smuggle it in. When I was 19, so 30 years ago, shut up. It's not easy being married to Claire.